I overheard my daughter-in-law say, "He's just waiting to die so he can leave me the house." My son laughed, and I felt something inside me snap. But the next day, I made a decision that would change everything. I sold the house, closed the bank accounts, and vanished, left them with nothing but a letter. My name is Jack. I'm 62 years old, and I've spent most of my life building a successful business. People around here know me as a man of wealth and influence. I've owned multiple properties, helped put my kids through the best schools, and given them opportunities they never could have dreamed of. People respected me, but it only took a single conversation to make me realize how little respect I had left in my own family. You see, I married Laura when I was just starting out, barely scraping by. She worked tirelessly at a law firm, helping me with every step as I built my own company from nothing. When the business finally took off, she stayed grounded, never asking for more, never expecting anything except maybe the love and respect I'd promised her. But somewhere along the way, that respect started slipping. Slowly, over time, it was replaced with something else: greed. Our son, Aaron, was always the ambitious one. He worked for me, climbed the ranks in my company, and I thought he was the one who would carry my legacy. I trusted him, maybe too much. He married Kate, and at first she seemed like a good match. Polite, well-spoken, and ambitious, just like Aaron. But I began to notice the small things, little comments here and there, always about money, always about what they could have more of. The house, the vacations, the expensive toys. It never seemed enough for them. Then one day I heard them talking. I was in the living room just about to walk to the kitchen when I overheard Kate saying, "I don't care about the old man, he's useless. All I need is what's coming when he's gone." Aaron chuckled, and then he said, "Yeah, we've just got to wait him out. Once he's gone, it's all ours." That's when I knew. They weren't just after my money, they were planning on how to take it all without lifting a finger. For a long time I tried to ignore it, tried to pretend that things hadn't changed. But deep down, I couldn't deny the truth anymore. I loved Laura more than anything, but the family we'd built had started to turn on us. They no longer saw us as family. We were just a means to an end. The next morning I woke up early, not to the usual routine of business calls or meetings, but to a very different feeling, a feeling of liberation. I sat with Laura over coffee, looking at her, wondering how long I could keep pretending everything was fine. She noticed the change in me right away. "Jack, what's wrong?" she asked. "I'm tired, Laura, tired of being used, tired of being seen as nothing more than a bank account. I've heard enough." I paused, looking at her, my partner, my rock. "I'm selling everything, everything we've worked for." Laura looked at me in confusion, the shock settling in. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've had enough. I'll sell the house, the business, the properties, everything. We're getting out." For a moment she didn't speak. The weight of what I was saying hung in the air. Then finally she asked, "But what about Aaron? What about the future?" Her voice was trembling. "We can't just leave everything behind." "I'll take care of us, Laura. I'm done being their punching bag, their tool for convenience. I've earned everything, and I'm not going to let anyone take that from me, not even my own son." I spent the next few days working with my lawyer and accountant to sell everything. They tried to talk me out of it, of course. "You're throwing it all away," they said. "This doesn't make sense." But nothing made sense anymore. Aaron had already made his choice, and he'd made it clear. It was time to take control of my life again. I liquidated everything: properties, investments, the business. The money was flowing into a new account, one that Aaron couldn't touch, one that only Laura and I had access to. We didn't look back. When it was all done, I packed a bag and we left. The house, the wealth, the life we had known, all gone. I left a note for Aaron, just a few lines. Simple, but with a message he would never forget. It said, "Aaron, you and Kate think you've got this all figured out. You think I'm just a pawn in your game. Well, I'm done playing. I'm not leaving you anything. When I'm gone, you won't have anything of mine to take. The only thing you have now is the family you've already destroyed. Goodbye, Jack." We didn't wait around to hear their reaction. Laura and I packed our things and boarded a plane, just the two of us. As the plane ascended, I felt something inside me lighten. I was finally free. No more meetings, no more business to worry about, no more pretending to be part of a family that had stopped being a family a long time ago. The next few weeks were strange. For the first time in decades, I had no responsibilities, no one to impress. We started over, just Laura and me in a small town living simply. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about peace, and I had finally found it. But deep down, I knew Aaron and Kate wouldn't let this go easily. They'd come looking for us eventually, and when they did, I'd be ready. Because this time I was the one in control. The weeks passed by in a blur. Laura and I settled into our new life without the constant pressure of the business, without the looming expectations of a family that had turned into nothing more than a group of opportunists. It was strange at first, quiet, almost too quiet, but it felt good. No phone calls demanding answers, no visits from Aaron and Kate pretending to be concerned. We had peace, and it was the first time in years that I truly felt at ease. We found a small house by the beach in a quiet town. It wasn't much, nothing like the grand homes we had in the city, but it was ours. Laura started to relax. Her laugh, once so rare since the strain of our old life had worn on her, began to return. Every morning we'd take walks along the shoreline, the sand beneath our feet, the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks soothing our souls. This was the life I had promised her long ago, the life we could have had if I'd only known sooner. But I knew deep down this wouldn't last forever. Aaron and Kate might not have come after us yet, but I could feel them scheming. The business empire I had built wasn't just going to vanish in thin air. They would come, and when they did, I'd be ready. 2 weeks after we arrived, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. It was early, the sun just starting to rise over the horizon. I glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello." "Jack, it's Jessica." My heart skipped. Jessica was our daughter. She had always been the one who stayed grounded, who understood what truly mattered. "Dad, I need to talk to you." I sat up in bed, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "What's going on, honey?" "It's Michael and Kate. They're freaking out. They've been calling me nonstop for the past 2 days. They don't know where you are. They think you've gone off the deep end, that something happened to you." I let out a sigh. Of course, they were panicking. They were probably trying to find out if I had left anything behind for them to claim. They had always thought that the wealth I had built was their entitlement. Now that it was gone, they were desperate. "I'm fine, Jessica," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just done with all of it. I don't owe them anything, and I certainly don't owe them an explanation." "I understand, Dad, but they're not taking this well. Michael's upset, and Kate, well, you know how she is. She's been going around telling everyone that you're crazy, that you lost your mind when you sold everything. She's spreading rumors, Dad." I felt my blood pressure rise. Of course, Kate was playing the victim. She was good at that. She had always been manipulative, charming when she needed to be, but behind the smiles, she was calculating. I wasn't surprised she was telling people that I had lost it. Anything to make her look like the innocent one in all of this. "Let them say what they want," I said, my voice firm. "I've made my decision. I'm not coming back." "I know, Dad, I know. But please don't just disappear. You're scaring people. Michael and Kate are talking about calling the police, thinking you're missing or something." "Tell them I'm not missing. Tell them I'm exactly where I need to be, and I'm not coming back until I'm ready." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "I just don't want this to get out of hand, Dad. They're going to make a scene. They're already planning to meet with the lawyer." "The lawyer?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "What for?" "They want to contest your will, Dad. They think you've hidden something, or that there's something you're not telling them. They think they're entitled to the company, to everything." I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Of course they do. They've always thought they could just take what they want." "I'll handle them, Dad. I'll keep them away from you, but please, promise me you'll call me if anything happens. I just want you to be okay." "I'll be fine, Jessica. I'm doing what's best for me and for your mother. I'm not going back to that life." As the conversation ended, I sat in silence for a moment, processing what I had just heard. Michael and Kate weren't just angry, they were desperate. Desperate to find out where I had hidden my wealth, desperate to take control of everything I had worked for. It wasn't enough for them to have what they had taken, they wanted more. I walked out onto the porch of our little beach house, the early morning air crisp against my skin. The sun was rising, casting a warm orange glow across the horizon. It was beautiful, but the peace I had found here felt fragile now, like it could shatter at any moment. The truth was, I had no idea what Michael and Kate would do next. They were the type to stop at nothing to get what they wanted. They would turn people against me, twist the truth to make me look like the bad guy. They would do anything to reclaim what they thought was theirs. I wasn't going to make it easy for them. Laura came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. She rested her chin on my shoulder. "What's going on?" she asked softly. "They're coming, Laura," I said, my voice low. "They're going to try to take everything back. They'll try to make this my fault." "We knew they would, but we're not going to let them." She squeezed me tighter. "We'll fight together." I nodded, feeling the strength in her words. Together. The phone call with Jessica had been a wake-up call. I couldn't hide forever, but I had no intention of letting Michael and Kate walk away with everything they thought they were entitled to. This wasn't just about money, it was about dignity, respect. They thought they could tear apart everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed. They were wrong. I made my way back inside, sat at the small desk by the window, and opened my laptop. I needed to be prepared. I wasn't going to wait for them to come to me. I would take the fight to them. It was time to play a different game, one where I held all the cards. The next few days passed with a sense of unease hanging over us. Michael and Kate hadn't come looking for us yet, but I could feel the storm building. Laura and I spent our mornings by the beach, trying to keep our minds off what was happening back in Chicago, but it wasn't easy. They were out there, plotting, and I knew it wouldn't be long before they made their move. Jessica kept in touch, updating me on the growing tension. Michael and Kate were pressuring her too, trying to get answers they knew she didn't have. They didn't know where we were, but they knew we had gone, vanished without a trace, just as I had intended. The only person who knew our exact location was Jessica, and she promised she would keep it to herself, but I could feel the pressure mounting. Every phone call from her felt like another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. That evening, as we sat at a small restaurant by the water, Laura looked at me with a glint of concern in her eyes. "Jack, do you think they'll come after us? For real?" I knew she was trying to keep her own fear in check. She'd always been the strong one, the one who held everything together when things got tough. But even she couldn't hide the uncertainty that had crept into her voice. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about losing our peace, our safety, and our newfound freedom. "Of course they will," I said, my voice calm but steady. "They've already shown their true colors. They won't stop until they have everything. But I'm not going to let them take anything else from me." Laura took a deep breath and reached for my hand across the table. "You're right, Jack. We've earned this life, and I'm not going to let them ruin it for us." I squeezed her hand, grateful for her unwavering support. "We've made it this far, Laura. We're not going to let them drag us back into that mess. We're going to fight this on our terms." We finished dinner in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts. I knew the moment was coming, the moment when Michael and Kate would show up, demanding answers, demanding what they thought was rightfully theirs. But I was ready for them. This time, I wouldn't back down. The following morning, I woke up early as I always did now. Laura was still asleep, her breath slow and steady beside me. I had been waking up with a purpose lately. Every day, I spent hours preparing for what was to come, building strategies, making connections, and ensuring that when the time came, Michael and Kate wouldn't stand a chance. I knew they would try to hit me where it hurt, the business. It was the heart of everything I had built. They thought they could use their claims to the company to leverage their way back into my life, but they didn't know I had already taken care of it. I had made sure my business was closed down in a way that left them with nothing. But I wasn't done yet. No, I had one final card to play. I wasn't just going to make them feel the sting of losing the business. I was going to expose them for who they really were. They had made the mistake of underestimating me, underestimating how far I was willing to go to protect what was mine. But more than that, they had underestimated Laura. She was my partner in this, and together, we would make sure they never walked over us again. I got up from the bed and made my way to the small desk where I kept my laptop. The email I had been drafting for the past few days was almost ready. I had taken my time with it, each word carefully chosen, each sentence crafted to hit hard, to send a clear message. It wasn't just about Michael and Kate anymore. It was about showing everyone who had ever doubted me, everyone who had ever seen me as weak or vulnerable, exactly who I was. As I sat there typing the final words, I couldn't help but think of all the years I had spent building this empire, working long hours, sacrificing time with family, putting my heart and soul into every deal, every property. And for what? For Michael and Kate to take it all and throw it away, treating us like nothing more than stepping stones to their own success. No, that wasn't how this story was going to end. I hit send on the email and leaned back in the chair, letting out a long breath. The wheels were in motion now. Michael and Kate would know soon enough. And when they did, they would realize how badly they had underestimated me. The email was simple, but it was powerful. It was a message to both Michael and Kate, but more importantly, it was a message to the world. It said, "Michael and Kate, I've seen who you are. I've heard your words, your plans, your lies. You think you've won. You think you've manipulated me, used me for everything I'm worth. But you're wrong. What you didn't count on was me. What you didn't see was that everything I've built, every property, every investment, every dollar was never just about the money. It was about legacy. It was about family. But now that legacy is mine, and you will never touch it again. You want to fight? Then let's fight. But don't expect me to play by your rules. I've made sure that everything you thought was yours is gone. Your inheritance, your claim to my empire, none of it exists anymore. It's all mine now. And as for you two, don't bother looking for me. You won't find me. And when you do look, I want you to remember this one thing. Family is built on respect, not greed. You chose greed, and now you have nothing. Goodbye, Jack." I clicked send, the finality of it settling over me like a weight. It wasn't just a message to Michael and Kate. It was a declaration of independence, a declaration that I would no longer be their pawn. That afternoon, I decided it was time to take everything back. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the company. It was about showing Michael and Kate, once and for all, that I was no longer the man they could manipulate, the man they thought would just roll over when they came knocking. No, I wasn't that man anymore. The phone rang. I picked it up without looking at the caller ID. I didn't need to. "Dad, where are you?" It was Michael. His voice was frantic, shaky, and full of fear. "I'm not where you think I am, Michael, and you're never going to find me." The phone call from Michael was only the beginning. The panic in his voice, the desperation to figure out what had happened to me, it was all a show, and I could see right through it. He thought he could intimidate me, thought I'd cave under the pressure. But I wasn't the man who had built everything just to hand it over. Not anymore. I spent the next few days watching, waiting. Michael and Kate were circling, trying to figure out their next move. They were angry, yes, but mostly they were scared. I had taken everything away from them, everything they thought they could inherit, and they didn't know what to do without it. The power they'd had over me was gone, and that left them floundering. Laura and I kept our distance. We went about our days in the small coastal town we had chosen, enjoying the peace we'd fought for. But every now and then, my phone would buzz with another call from Jessica. The messages were always the same. Michael and Kate were losing their minds. They were calling anyone who would listen, spinning their web of lies, but they weren't going to get away with it. Not this time. Jessica was as angry as I was, but she was stuck in the middle. She loved us both, and she hated seeing her brother tear apart everything we had worked for. She had tried to intervene, tried to make him understand that the things he was doing were wrong, but it was no use. Michael was too far gone, too blinded by greed. I didn't speak to Michael for a while after that first phone call. It wasn't until a week later, when I was walking along the beach, that I received another call. This time I didn't hesitate. I answered. "Dad, we need to talk." It was Michael's voice again, but this time there was something different, something less certain, more cautious. I didn't respond right away. I let him stew in the silence, let the weight of the words hang in the air. "You sold everything, didn't you?" he asked, his voice tight. "I did." Why would you do that? You've lost your mind, you don't know what you're doing." I could hear the anger building in his voice. I could picture him pacing back and forth in his fancy office in Chicago, trying to figure out how to fix the mess he had found himself in. But I wasn't going to fix it for him. I wasn't going to help him out of the hole he had dug. "Michael," I said calmly, "you need to understand something. I didn't do this for you. I didn't do this for anyone except myself and your mother. We've been used for too long. I'm not going to let you continue to take advantage of us." "What are you talking about?" His voice was rising now, desperate. "I didn't take advantage of you. I've always worked hard. I've built my own life." "Built your life?" I repeated, my tone cold. "You think you've built your life? You've only been living off of mine. You've always wanted everything handed to you, and I gave you everything. The company, the cars, the house, the money, I gave it all to you. But that's not enough, is it?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing, his frustration building with every passing second. "Dad, this isn't fair. This is all mine. It was supposed to be mine. Why would you do this to me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, Michael, it was never yours. You never earned a thing. I built this. Your mother built this. You've been riding my coattails your whole life, and now you're mad because I decided it's time to take it all back." I let the silence settle between us again, each second stretching longer than the last. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me into feeling guilty. Not this time. "You don't understand," Michael said, his voice low now. "I was supposed to take over. This was supposed to be my future." "You don't get it, do you?" I replied, my voice growing more firm. "You've never earned anything. Everything you had was a gift. I wanted you to succeed on your own, but you didn't want that. You wanted me to hand it all to you. Well, it's gone, and you're going to have to figure it out, on your own." His response was a mix of anger and disbelief. "I'll take you to court. I'll fight for what's mine." "Go ahead," I said, my tone unshaken. "But you won't get a dime. The company's gone. The money's gone. Everything I had is gone. All you have left now is the mess you've made. And when you finally understand what you've lost, it'll be too late." "I'll make sure you regret this," Michael spat. "You already regret it, Michael," I said softly. "You just don't know it yet." The call ended abruptly, and I sat there for a moment, staring out at the ocean. The wind had picked up, whipping through the palm trees and sending a chill through the air. It was the kind of day that made you reflect on everything you had, everything you lost, and everything you were willing to fight for. I knew Michael would try to fight me. I knew he would make a scene, throw his weight around, and try to reclaim what he thought was his. But he wouldn't get far. Not with me. Not with the plans I had in place. I wasn't going to lose this fight. Not when it meant protecting the life I had built with Laura. We had worked too hard for too long to let it slip away. And now the battle was on. That night, after I had cooled down from the conversation, I found myself pacing in the small living room of our coastal house, running through the next steps in my mind. I had taken everything away from Michael and Kate, cut them off completely. But there was still more to do. They still had power in their corner, connections that could be dangerous. I couldn't just sit back and wait for them to make their move. I needed to make mine first. The next day I called Jessica. "Have you spoken to them again?" I asked. They're not done. They're gathering people, trying to rally support for their side. Let them, I said. Tell them I'm not backing down. They're going to learn the hard way that they can't mess with me, but I need you to keep your distance. Don't get caught in the middle. I won't, Jessica said, and I could hear the resolve in her voice. Just be careful, okay? I will, I said, a plan forming in my mind. I'll handle this. I spent the following days in a haze of preparation. It was clear that Michael and Kate wouldn't just let this go. They would push, prod, and pull until they got what they thought they were entitled to. But what they didn't realize was that this time, I wasn't going to play by their rules. This time, I was in control, and I had no intention of letting them take anything else from me. The first step was securing everything I could. I had already closed down my company, but that didn't mean it was completely out of their reach. There were still some loose ends, assets they might think they could claim or people they might try to manipulate into helping them. I couldn't afford to leave anything to chance. I contacted my old trusted business associates, the ones who knew how to keep their mouths shut and follow through on agreements. I made sure that every last vestige of my empire, every piece of property, every investment was either sold, restructured, or legally transferred into new, untraceable accounts. The money was there, but it wouldn't be easy to find. The real victory wasn't in the wealth itself. It was in the fact that Michael and Kate wouldn't even know where to start looking. The only thing left was the legal side of things. I had made sure to leave no will behind, not one that they could contest. They would have nothing to claim, nothing to show for their greed. I knew they would try. I knew they would turn every stone, use every lawyer in their network and waste their time on legal battles, but they would come up empty-handed. I woke up early one morning to the sound of my phone ringing again. This time, it was Jessica. I had expected it. She had become the only bridge between me and the chaos brewing back in Chicago. "Dad," she said, her voice strained. "It's getting worse. Michael and Kate are talking about going public with this. They're telling people you're losing your mind, that you've gone crazy, and that you're hiding something." I had prepared for this. I knew Michael's desperation would drive him to make a scene. He couldn't fathom the idea that his inheritance was gone. He didn't understand that this wasn't about money. It was about something much more profound. It was about respect. It was about showing him that the world didn't revolve around him and his entitlement. "They can say whatever they want, Jessica," I replied, my voice steady. "Let them talk. They're only digging themselves into a deeper hole. People will see through their lies eventually. But don't worry about me. I've already made my move." "You've made your move," she repeated, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I've taken care of everything. There's no way they're getting anything. Not from me, not from anyone." "But Dad..." "Jessica, you don't need to worry about anything. Just stay out of it. This is my fight now." There was a long pause, and I could hear the worry in her voice. "I just don't want to see you hurt, Dad. You've done everything for us. Don't let them destroy you." "I won't let them destroy me, honey," I said, my tone softer. "I'm doing this for all of us, for you, for Laura, for the life we've built, and for my own peace of mind. No one is going to take that from me." I hung up the phone and sat there for a moment, staring out at the ocean. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was almost therapeutic, a reminder that there was still beauty in the world. No matter how far Michael and Kate tried to push me, I would find a way to keep moving forward. But then came the first real shock. 2 days later, I woke up to find a letter slipped under our front door. It was addressed to me in an envelope that looked official, like something from a lawyer's office. I opened it quickly, knowing that whatever it was, it wouldn't be good. Inside was a letter from Michael's attorney, demanding that I return everything I had sold or face legal consequences. The letter was full of threats, claims that I had acted improperly by selling the company and its assets without informing Michael or anyone else in the family. It was laughable. They were trying to twist the facts, trying to make me look like the bad guy, all to cover up their own greed. I read the letter carefully, taking in every word. There were references to family trust agreements I had intentionally avoided, and hints at ways they might try to take me to court over the inheritance. They were trying to bait me into a response, but I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. I wasn't going to fall into their trap. Instead, I picked up the phone and dialed my lawyer, Robert. He was one of the few people I still trusted in this mess. He had been with me from the beginning, helping me navigate the complexities of my business, and I knew he'd know how to handle this. "Robert," I said when he answered, "we've got a problem." "I'm assuming this has to do with Michael and Kate," he replied, already knowing what was coming. "You're right. They've sent me a letter claiming that I've wronged them by selling everything. They're threatening legal action." "I see," Robert said calmly. "Let me guess, they're trying to make it look like you violated some sort of family trust agreement." "That's exactly it. They think they can drag me into a court battle." "Don't worry, Jack," Robert said. "You've covered your bases. You did everything legally, and I've been following your instructions every step of the way. They have no case." "I hope you're right," I said, feeling a small weight lift off my shoulders. "I am. I'll handle this, Jack. You don't need to do anything. Let me take care of it." "Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it." I hung up the phone, feeling a renewed sense of calm. Michael and Kate could try all they wanted, but they would fail. I had made sure of that. Everything was in place, and they were already too late. Now I just had to wait. They were going to make a mistake. I was sure of it. The following week dragged by slowly, each day feeling longer than the last. Michael and Kate were still at it, sending letter after letter through their lawyer, demanding everything be returned to them, making threats of legal action that were becoming more and more desperate. But each time, my lawyer, Robert, handled the situation with the kind of calm expertise that made me feel more confident in my decisions. It was all part of the game now, watching them flounder, watching them try to grasp at something that had already slipped from their fingers. Every time they sent a letter, every time they made a call, they only revealed more of their true nature. They were greedy. They were entitled. And now they were showing the world exactly who they were. But even though I was calm on the surface, I knew something else was coming. Michael and Kate weren't going to stop with legal threats. They were going to escalate things, push harder, and try to take matters into their own hands. They would do anything to get their way, and I had to be ready. Laura and I kept up our quiet life in the small town, but the tension never fully left. Every phone call, every email from Jessica brought news of their next move. They were desperate, but they weren't stupid. They were beginning to realize that the legal route wasn't going to get them what they wanted. They had no legal claim to anything anymore. That much had been made clear. It wasn't until one rainy afternoon, 2 weeks after I'd received the first letter, that I received another call. This time, it wasn't from Jessica. It was from Robert, my lawyer. "Jack, we need to talk," he said, his voice grave. "Is this about Michael and Kate?" I asked, already sensing the shift in his tone. "Unfortunately, yes. They've done something a little more drastic this time." A chill ran down my spine. I could already feel the air shift. "What do you mean?" "They've gone public. They've told several people that you've stolen from them. They've started to spread rumors about your mental health, and they're trying to paint a picture that you've lost your mind. They're making you out to be some sort of crazy old man who's not in his right mind." I took a deep breath, my mind racing. This wasn't just a legal tactic anymore. This was an attack on my character. It was personal. They weren't just trying to take my money. They were trying to ruin everything I had left. They wanted to destroy me, to discredit me in front of everyone who mattered. "They're trying to destroy my reputation," I said, my voice quiet but filled with determination. "They know they can't win this in court. They're using lies to do it instead." "I'm afraid so," Robert replied. "And they're not just targeting you anymore. They've started contacting some of your old colleagues, trying to get them to vouch for their claims. They're trying to build a case, even if it's all based on lies." This is a game to them, I said, my voice cold. They don't care about the truth. They never did. We can fight this legally, Robert said, but I'm going to be honest with you, Jack. They're already building a narrative and they're spreading it fast. They're using their connections to turn people against you. I didn't need Robert to tell me that. I already knew what was happening. This wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't about who would get the inheritance. This was about their desire to tear me down, to show me that no matter how much I had built, it didn't matter. They wanted to make me feel small. They wanted to make me disappear. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it all settling heavily on me. For the first time in a long while, I felt the rush of emotions I'd been trying to suppress. Anger, betrayal, pain. But more than anything, I felt the need to take control, to end this once and for all. I'm not going to let them get away with this, Robert, I said, my voice steady, the anger now channeled into something more focused. I'm done being the target. They've taken enough. It's time to fight back. Jack, we'll fight them in court. We'll make sure they can't tarnish your reputation. No, I interrupted. It's not just about court anymore. It's about showing them I'm still in control. I'm going to make them regret ever thinking they could do this. I could hear Robert pause on the other end of the line. What do you mean? I'm going to show the world who they really are, I said, my mind already racing with ideas. I'll expose them for the greedy, manipulative people they are. I'll use everything I've got to make sure they never have the chance to hurt me or anyone else again. There was a long pause before Robert spoke again. Jack, I need to warn you. If you do this, it could escalate things. It could get ugly. I know, I said, my voice steady, but it's already ugly, and I've had enough. Later that evening, as I sat at my desk, I began to put my plan into action. The truth was, Michael and Kate had underestimated me from the start. They thought I was just an old man, a relic of a bygone era, someone they could easily push around. But they had no idea how wrong they were. I had fought too hard for everything I had to let them tear it down with lies and manipulation. I wasn't just going to sit back and watch them destroy everything I had left. I would turn their own game against them. It was time to reveal the truth. I reached for my laptop and began drafting an email. This email wasn't just to Robert, it was to everyone who mattered in my life, people who knew me, people who could help turn the tide. It wasn't just a letter, it was a declaration. Michael and Kate think they can ruin me. They think they can twist the truth, turn people against me, and tear down everything I've worked for. They're wrong. I'm not going to let them. The truth is stronger than their lies, and I'm going to make sure the world knows exactly who they are. As I finished drafting the email, the weight of the decision I had made began to settle over me. I was no longer just protecting my assets or my reputation. I was fighting for something more. I was fighting for dignity, for the respect I had worked so hard to earn, and for the peace I had finally found with Laura. I had no intention of letting Michael and Kate destroy all of that with their lies. The email I had written wasn't just a statement, it was a call to action. I sent it out to a select group of my closest allies, the people who had been part of my journey, who knew me well enough to understand the truth. The ones who had worked with me, respected me, and saw the years I had spent building my business, my legacy, and my family. This wasn't just about a battle with Michael and Kate. It was about showing them that the people I had surrounded myself with, real friends, real colleagues, knew the truth. They knew who I was. As soon as the email was sent, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I had made my move. Michael and Kate were about to find out that their plan to destroy me wasn't going to work, but I also knew that they wouldn't take this lying down. They would retaliate. I braced myself for the storm that was coming. The very next day, I received a phone call from Jessica. I could hear the tension in her voice. Dad, they're not backing off. Michael and Kate have already started reaching out to the people you contacted. They're trying to twist things, making you sound like a paranoid, vengeful old man. I wasn't surprised. They would do whatever it took to salvage their plan, even if it meant slandering me to anyone who would listen. But I had prepared for this. My email had already gone out, and I wasn't about to let them take control of the narrative. I knew who I was, and now, so did the people who mattered. "I'm not worried, Jessica," I said, my voice calm, though I could feel the heat of the fight still simmering in me. "Let them do what they have to do. They can't rewrite history. They can't make people forget who I am and what I've done." "But Dad, they're pulling out all the stops. They've already got a few people questioning your mental state. They're bringing up your age, your decision to sell everything. They're trying to paint you as unstable." I closed my eyes, willing myself to stay calm. I could feel the anger building inside me again, but I couldn't afford to let it control me. Not now. I had a plan, and I needed to stay focused. "Let them," I said, my voice firm. "Jessica, they can say whatever they want. They can twist the facts, manipulate the truth, but it doesn't matter. The people who matter, the ones who know me, will see through their lies. I've worked too hard for this to let them destroy it, and I'm not going to let them get away with it." "I know, Dad, but they're relentless. It's hard to watch." "I understand," I said, my voice softening a little. "But this is my fight now. I've made my decision, and there's no turning back. I need you to stay out of this, Jessica. You've got your own life, and I don't want you caught in the middle." "I will, Dad. Just please be careful." "I will," I assured her, though I knew the worst wasn't over yet. "Don't worry. I've got everything under control." After hanging up, I found myself pacing the small living room of our house. It felt strange to be in this position, fighting against my own son, battling the very people I had once trusted to carry on my legacy. But it had become clear that Michael and Kate weren't interested in family or respect. They only cared about what they could take from me, and I wasn't going to let them. I picked up my phone and dialed Robert's number. He answered on the second ring. "Jack, what's going on?" he asked, his voice steady but with an edge of concern. "Michael and Kate are trying to smear my name. They're reaching out to people I know, trying to turn them against me, trying to make me look unstable." "Jack, this is exactly what we were preparing for," Robert replied. "We've got the facts on our side. They're making a huge mistake." "I know," I said, feeling a surge of determination. "But they need to understand that they can't just walk over me. I'm not backing down, Robert. I'm not going to let them ruin everything I've worked for. I'm going to make sure they regret this." "Jack, I understand, but you need to be careful. These things can escalate quickly. You're dealing with two very dangerous people right now." "I'm aware of that," I replied, my voice calm but resolute. "But they've underestimated me, and now I'm going to show them just how badly." We spent the next hour discussing strategy. Robert was working on the legal side of things, preparing to make sure Michael and Kate couldn't touch anything I had left. But there was still more to be done. This wasn't just about court battles. This was about making sure that no one, not even Michael and Kate, could get away with trying to destroy me. The next step was to start gathering the people I knew would stand by me. I had spent years building relationships, cultivating trust, and now it was time to use those connections to fight back. I wasn't going to let Michael and Kate control the narrative anymore. I wasn't going to let them turn my life into a public spectacle. As I sat down to write another email, this time to the people I trusted most, I felt a sense of purpose flood through me. This wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't about punishing Michael and Kate. It was about setting things right. It was about showing everyone that respect and integrity mattered more than money and manipulation. I hit send, and the fight for better or worse was on. The following days were filled with a kind of tension I had never experienced before. I was fighting a battle that was as much about my identity as it was about money. Every call, every email, every piece of communication from Michael and Kate seemed to chip away at my resolve, but I wasn't backing down. I couldn't afford to. I had made my decision, and it wasn't just about securing my wealth or my legacy. It was about showing the world that I wasn't some passive, easy target. I wasn't going to let my own son and his wife destroy everything I had built with lies and manipulation. Not now, not ever. After sending the email to my closest allies, the responses started coming in. People who had worked with me for years, people who had watched me build my empire from the ground up, began to rally around me. They were shocked by Michael and Kate's actions, but they were even more determined to make sure the truth came out. They were standing by me, not out of obligation, but because they knew what I was capable of. They knew who I really was. At the same time, Michael and Kate's smear campaign was picking up steam. I knew it would. They were talking to anyone who would listen, trying to convince people that I had lost my mind. They were telling people that I was reckless, that I was destroying the family legacy. I knew it was only a matter of time before they would try to escalate things further, go public, make a spectacle of the entire situation. But I wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. I decided it was time to take control of the narrative. It was one thing to fight back legally. It was another to ensure that the world saw the truth. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for Michael and Kate to spin their version of events. If they wanted to go public, then so be it. But I would go public too. And I would make sure that my side of the story was heard loud and clear. I started reaching out to the media. I wasn't looking for a spotlight, but I knew that in a situation like this, the only way to stop a lie from spreading was to expose it to the light. I contacted a few trusted reporters, journalists who had covered my business successes over the years. I made sure they knew the truth. Michael and Kate weren't victims. They were the ones who had tried to take everything from me, to manipulate and destroy our family for their own gain. The response was swift. The story began to circulate, slowly at first, then picking up momentum. People who had once turned a blind eye to Michael and Kate's behavior began to pay attention. Their lies weren't sticking anymore. They couldn't control the narrative when there were so many people willing to stand up and speak the truth. As the story started to gain traction, I could see the frustration in Michael's eyes when we spoke next. He called me, his voice seething with anger. "Dad, you don't know what you're doing," he spat. "You're ruining everything. You think this is going to make people respect you. You're just embarrassing yourself." I let him speak, not because I cared about what he was saying, but because I knew it was just a reflection of his desperation. He was losing control. He could feel it, and he knew he was out of his depth. "You're the one who's embarrassing yourself, Michael," I replied calmly. "You've tried to ruin me, to turn everyone against me, but it's not working. People know the truth now, and you're the one who looks like the fool." "I'll make sure you regret this," Michael threatened. "I'll take you to court. I'll expose you for what you really are." "You can try," I said, my voice steady, "but you won't win, and you won't get your way." For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the line. I knew Michael was trying to figure out his next move, but it didn't matter anymore. He had already made his mistakes. He had shown his true colors, and no amount of money or legal threats would change that now. "I'm not afraid of you anymore, Michael," I added, my voice firm. "You can keep trying to tear me down, but I'm done. I've already made my move, and you're not going to stop me." I hung up before he could respond. I didn't need to hear what he had to say anymore. It didn't matter. Over the next few days, the media coverage continued to grow. Michael and Kate were still spinning their lies, but now they had to contend with the truth being shouted from every corner. I had made sure of that. And as the public began to take notice, their attempts to play the victim were falling apart. But even as their credibility crumbled, I knew the battle wasn't over. Michael and Kate were still dangerous. They were still capable of doing whatever it took to get what they wanted. They would keep pushing, keep fighting, until they were completely backed into a corner. But I was ready. I had been ready for this moment for a long time. The next week I made another call, this time to Jessica. She had been quiet for a while, probably trying to stay out of the storm, but I could hear the concern in her voice when she answered. "Dad, how's everything going? They've been calling me nonstop, trying to get me to take their side. I don't know what to do." You don't need to do anything, Jessica, I said. This is my fight now. You just need to stay out of it. I've got it under control. I know you do, she replied, but I can't just sit here and watch them tear you apart. They're not going to tear me apart, I said firmly. I'm done being their punching bag. This ends now. I'll make sure of it. You're strong, Dad, she said, her voice full of pride. I know you'll make it through this. I will, I said, the resolve in my voice stronger than ever. But this isn't just about me. It's about showing them that they can't just take what they want. They can't destroy everything we've built, and they can't destroy us. I hung up the phone, feeling more determined than ever. This was far from over, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them win. The storm was coming. It was inevitable. No matter how much I had prepared, no matter how much I had fought back, Michael and Kate weren't going to accept defeat. They had their own pride to protect, their own egos to defend. They would never let go of their belief that everything I had worked for was rightfully theirs. But that wasn't going to happen. I had made sure of that. It was clear now that Michael and Kate were desperate. They had reached the limits of what their lies could accomplish. The media had turned on them, and the more they spoke, the more people saw through the facade they had built. But desperation has a way of pushing people to do reckless things. I could feel the tension building, the sense that they were about to lash out in some way, and I couldn't afford to be caught off guard. 2 days after my last conversation with Jessica, I received an unexpected call. It wasn't from Michael. It wasn't from Kate. It was from Robert, my lawyer. He sounded more concerned than I'd ever heard him. "Jack, we've got a serious problem," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "What happened?" I asked, my stomach tightening with unease. "Michael and Kate have gone to a new extreme. They're not just spreading rumors anymore. They've contacted a private investigator, and they're trying to dig up anything they can to use against you. They're looking for dirt, anything to discredit you and turn the public against you." I felt my pulse quicken. This wasn't just a smear campaign anymore. This was a full-on attack. They were pulling out all the stops, and they were determined to destroy me. They weren't just fighting for money. They were fighting for power. They wanted to crush me completely, to show me that they could take everything from me, including my reputation. "What do they think they'll find?" I asked, my voice more composed than I felt. "I've done nothing wrong." "That's the thing," Robert said. "They don't care about what's true. They just want to create doubt. They're hoping they'll find something, anything, that will make people question your integrity." I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the situation settle in. Michael and Kate weren't playing by the rules anymore. They had moved beyond legal threats and public lies. They were taking matters into their own hands, hoping to find something to ruin me once and for all. But they were wrong. I had nothing to hide. I had spent my entire life building my empire, my family, my reputation. I had worked too hard to let them tear it down. "They can dig all they want, Robert," I said, my voice firm, "but they won't find anything. I've kept my life clean. If they want to fight dirty, I'm more than prepared." "Jack, I'm not worried about the truth," Robert replied, his voice steady. "I'm worried about how far they're willing to go. If they find nothing to discredit you, they'll start creating their own lies, and that could lead to something much more dangerous." I understood what Robert was saying. They would stop at nothing to destroy me, to break me, but I wasn't about to let that happen. "I need to be prepared for anything," I said. "If they want to go down this road, we'll make sure they regret it." I hung up the phone, my mind racing. They were pushing me to the edge, but I wasn't about to break. I had already been through too much to let them take everything from me. It was time to take the next step, time to stop being reactive and start being proactive. The first thing I did was contact a security expert. If Michael and Kate thought they could intimidate me, they were sorely mistaken. They wanted to dig into my past, into my personal life, and that wasn't something I was willing to let them do unchecked. I had worked hard to build a life that was mine, and I wasn't going to let anyone compromise that. I hired a private security team to protect both my physical and digital security. I wasn't going to let Michael and Kate have access to any part of my life that could be used against me. The more they dug, the more I would be prepared to defend myself. They thought they could expose weakness, but I was going to make sure they couldn't even touch a single thread of my life without my consent. I also reached out to my contacts in the media once again. This wasn't just about defending my reputation anymore. It was about controlling the narrative. Michael and Kate were trying to manipulate the truth, and I wasn't going to let them succeed. I needed to make sure the public saw them for what they really were: manipulative, desperate, and willing to do anything to get their way. Over the next few days, the pressure continued to mount. Michael and Kate's campaign to discredit me only escalated, but I stayed calm, focused, and resolute. I knew they were running out of options. They had already tried everything, and nothing had worked. It was only a matter of time before their desperation would turn into a mistake. Then, one evening, just as I was about to sit down for dinner with Laura, I received an unexpected visitor. It was Jessica. Her face was tense, her eyes wide with worry. "Dad, I've got bad news," she said, her voice shaky. "What is it?" I asked, bracing myself. "It's Michael and Kate. They've gone too far. They've filed a lawsuit against you." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. A lawsuit. They were taking this to court, but not just over money. They were accusing me of defamation, of intentionally ruining their reputations. They were claiming that I had wrongfully distributed my assets and that they were entitled to the inheritance that I had taken away. "They're accusing me of defaming them," I repeated, disbelief and anger rising in me. "They're the ones who have been spreading lies about me." "I know, Dad," Jessica said, her voice filled with frustration. "But now it's official. They're making this a legal fight. They're trying to drag you through the courts." I sat there, stunned for a moment, trying to process the gravity of the situation. They weren't just trying to destroy my life. They were now trying to destroy me legally, too. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let them win. Not now, not ever. The shock of the lawsuit hit me harder than I expected. Michael and Kate weren't just taking a legal swing at me over money or the assets I'd already sold off. They were going after my reputation. They were trying to make me out to be a liar, a manipulator, someone who had destroyed their lives for no reason at all. The accusations were venomous, but I wasn't about to let them get away with it. The next few days were filled with furious preparations. I didn't have the luxury of being passive anymore. I had to strike back, not just for myself, but for Laura, for the life we had built, and for the principle that I wasn't going to let them control my future. I wasn't going to let them dictate the terms of this battle. They had already underestimated me, and now it was time to prove just how far they were willing to go to destroy me. The first thing I did was meet with Robert. We gathered all the documents, all the proof of everything that had happened over the years, everything Michael and Kate thought they could manipulate. I wasn't just going to fight this lawsuit in court. I was going to expose their lies. If they wanted a public fight, then I would give them one they'd regret. "We've got the evidence we need, Jack," Robert said as he laid out all the paperwork on the table. "This lawsuit they've filed is nothing more than a last-ditch effort to ruin your reputation. It's based on nothing but their word." "I know," I said, taking in the documents. "They're trying to make me look like a villain, but they're the ones who have been lying all along." Robert nodded, flipping through the stack of papers. "We're going to make sure they don't get away with it. I'm going to file a countersuit for defamation, Jack. We'll go after them hard." "Good," I said, my voice filled with determination. "But we need to do more than just fight this in court. We need to show the world who they really are. We need to make sure this doesn't just stay in the courtroom." Robert raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "They've been spreading lies about me for months. Now I'm going to use the media against them. I'll take this story public. I'll expose them for who they really are: greedy, manipulative, and willing to do anything to tear a family apart." It was time to make sure Michael and Kate felt the weight of what they were doing. They had already shown their true colors, but now it was time to turn the spotlight on them. If they wanted to play dirty, I would play dirtier, but I would play smarter. I immediately contacted the journalists I had been in touch with previously. They were ready. They had seen the truth, and they were eager to help me set the record straight. I told them everything. I told them about the smear campaign, about Michael and Kate's efforts to destroy everything I had built, and about the lawsuit they had filed. The reporters were quick to pick up the story. As soon as the first article went live, I could hear the wheels starting to turn. Michael and Kate were no longer just fighting me in court, they were fighting public opinion, and they didn't have the advantage anymore. The press coverage spread like wildfire. Every time Michael or Kate made a public appearance or sent out a statement, the media responded, digging deeper into their claims. The public wasn't buying their story. The truth was coming out piece by piece. And now, it was no longer just about their desire for money. It was about their desperation, their greed, and their willingness to destroy the very thing they had once claimed to love, family. I watched as the narrative shifted. The sympathy that Michael and Kate thought they would earn from the public evaporated, replaced by backlash. People started to see them for what they really were, opportunistic, selfish, and willing to go to any lengths to get what they wanted. They couldn't hide behind lies anymore. They couldn't hide behind their victim complex. The truth was out, and it was clear. They had been the ones manipulating the situation from the start. But even as the media pressure mounted, I knew this wasn't the end. Michael and Kate wouldn't just give up. They had too much at stake. The longer they fought, the more they stood to lose. But I was prepared. I had anticipated this. I had built my defense, and now it was time for them to feel the consequences of their actions. The next few weeks were a blur of court appearances, media coverage, and legal filings. Michael and Kate continued to dig their heels in, but each time they made a move, it backfired. Their case in court was weak, and their public image was rapidly deteriorating. They had spent so long hiding behind their false narratives that they didn't know how to handle the truth when it was exposed. I watched as their world started to crumble around them. Their once carefully curated public image began to crack. Michael tried to maintain the facade of being the wronged son, but it was clear to everyone that he had crossed a line. Kate, who had once played the role of the perfect wife, was now exposed as just another person trying to manipulate her way into a fortune. And then one day I received a call from Jessica. Her voice was shaky, but there was a hint of relief in it. "Dad, it's over," she said. "Michael and Kate, they're backing down. They've realized they can't win. The lawsuit is being dropped." I sat there for a moment, stunned. After everything we had been through, after all the lies and manipulation, it was finally over. Michael and Kate had finally realized that they had lost. It was over, but not without a heavy price. They had dragged me through the mud, tried to destroy everything I had worked for, but they hadn't won. They never would. "I'm done, Jessica," I said, my voice quieter than I'd expected. "It's over." "I know, Dad," she replied, her voice filled with emotion. "You've won. You've shown them who you are. You've shown them that you can't be broken." "Not anymore," I said, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Not anymore."